Hey everybody, Sensei James Wall here at Wall to Wall Martial Arts. Got Coach Matthew on the mat helping me out today. We're going to be going over the promotion material in our teen adult judo curriculum for semester 6 in our program. In this case, it's going to be the months of May, June, July, and August 2019. But bear in mind, it is a rotating curriculum, so this will rotate back around. So we refer to it as just semester 6. We're going to start with throwing techniques first. So let's get right into it. First technique is Okuriashi Harai. This is the sliding or assisting foot sweep. With this technique, my goal is to push one of his feet into the other one. He calls them both to come out from under. So I'm going to show a real basic side-to-side stepping version of it first, and then show another version where I try to catch my opponent as he steps back or is taking a retreating step. And either version would be acceptable. So this first version I like to use really when people are just starting to learn this technique. It's a real simple, easy way to work into this because the timing is crucial. And until you get the timing right, it's real hard to make it work for you. So what we're going to basically do is just take a step sideways together, and then back, and then sideways, and then back. And I want to kind of feel that rhythm. When I sweep his foot into his other foot, I'm also going to use this hand to tuck his elbow through. So I want to push through in that direction as I sweep. And again, I'm trying to push one foot into the other. So I'm going to have Coach Matthew stand here with his back to the camera for just a second and just kind of show this sort of side-to-side motion here. And sweep. So we want to turn our foot sideways, drag our pinky toe, push one foot into the other foot. Another way that I like to do this one again is with my opponent taking a retreating step. So I might have him just sort of step with me here, and I want to catch, in this case, it's going to be his left foot as he's stepping back. And you'll notice I'm also going to give a big pulling motion with the upper body to help kind of get his weight up, get that little bit of a body lift. So in slow motion, without actually doing the throw, for this one, I'm going to push his foot as he steps back, and I want to guide it here into the other foot. And in combination with that, I'm lifting high and pulling. All right, so Kuriashi Harai, sliding or assisting foot sweep. Next technique is going to be Uchimata, the inner thigh reap. This one can be done as a standard, just a straight throw, or we can do the Kin-Kin version. On your paper, it's just called Uchimata. The Kin-Kin is a good way to practice it if you're just learning or trying to take care of your partner. It helps you control their fall a little better. So for Uchimata, I like to get my thumb into the back of his collar here. And I'm a right-sided player, so I've got my right foot forward. I'm going to try to catch my opponent when he has his left foot forward. That way our feet are very close together. So I'll take my right foot, step to the middle, left foot pivots, so I'm standing beside him, my hips close to his, and I want my leg to come up above his knee, actually on his inner thigh. Not all the way up to the middle to his groin, but I do want to be above his knee. Now as my leg lifts his leg, my upper body needs to pivot as I bring his upper body down. So I like to think of it as a seesaw or a teeter-totter like this, okay? So I lift his leg and I pivot my upper body here for the throw, okay? The Kin-Kin version, or hop-hop or jump-jump version, would allow me to have a lot of control over how hard and fast my partner falls and whether I'm landing on them. So for that version, I can do everything the same way, but then lift his leg about 3/4 of the way up and then use a hopping motion. And each time I hop, I'll lift his leg higher and I'll sort of ratchet his upper body. So I'll hop, hop, hop until he loses his balance and he falls over. So again, Kin-Kin, just another version of Uchimata you could use. And there are other multiple ways we could do it. We're looking at just a couple of basic ones. Next technique, Harai Goshi, the hip sweep, or the sweeping hip throw. This technique is going to be me using my right leg to basically kick and sweep his hip out from under him. So it's a lot like Osotogari, except we're both facing the same direction. My toe of my sweeping leg is not going to touch the mat. I want my leg to sort of come across his thigh, right above his knee, and I've got my toes pointing at the mat. So my leg muscles are lined up nice and strong, kind of like a blade. Again, we do want to get a little bit of a lifting motion here, create a little bit of a body rise, a little bit of an off balance. You can do this one with the thumb in the back of the collar, or if you need to, you can take this hand and go underneath his armpit, hug the top of his shoulder like that. The important thing to remember is we're not lifting him off the ground and then kicking our leg. The kick of our leg is what lifts him off the ground. We want to get him up on his toes, the balls of his feet, so his heels aren't touching, but we're not actually picking him up onto our hips and then moving our leg. So, if he's got his right leg forward, one way that I might do this would be to step to the middle again, pivot this leg around, so now I'm basically standing in front of him, pull him strong and tall, then my toes will point, leg comes out, and I sweep backwards here to create that strong lifting motion. Another way I like to work this throw, a slightly more advanced version of it, would be not actually letting my right leg touch the ground once I pick it up. So I'm just going to set this up first before I throw it. So with this right leg, instead of actually stepping to the center, I can just swing it across the front, use it like a counterweight, and then let my left leg hop and turn into position. So this leg would swing across, the left leg would hop here, then I would sweep. So let's kind of see that one real quick. So we swing, hop, and we sweep the leg, I should say. So Harai Goshi, the hip sweep or sweeping hip throw. Next technique is Maki Komi. Now in our curriculum, we differentiate Maki Komi from O Soto Maki Komi by saying Maki Komi is a forward throw and O Soto Maki Komi is a rear or kind of a rear corner throw. Not everyone uses that methodology to differentiate these two throws. So if you go somewhere else and they refer to this as O Soto or maybe just Soto Maki Komi, that is okay. Again, this is a decision I made years ago with this technique just to avoid confusion. So if it's a forward wrapping throw, I call it Maki Komi. If I'm wrapping and throwing him to the rear or rear corner, I refer to that as O Soto Maki Komi. So for Maki Komi, I'm going to let my right leg step, my right arm go over, clamp tight, my left leg steps back beside him, and then I want this right leg to block his leg. So I'm going to go toes down, and I want my leg touching his leg, but I want my knee to be bent. I don't want to block his leg. I'm a lot taller than Coach Matthew, so for me, I have to really bend this leg a lot. If I just step here and pull forward, I'm going to run the risk of hyperextending his knee. And I don't want to do that. I don't want to hurt my partner or even my opponent. We're just doing judo. We're trying to have a good time. So I want to really bend that knee, and then I'm going to wrap, and fall. Now you'll notice what I'm going to do is sort of catch a little bit of my body weight, kind of using my elbow and forearm here. So I'm not going to land with all of my weight on my partner here so that I hurt him. If I were doing this for real in a tournament or a self-defense situation, of course I would not catch myself. I would fall with all of my body weight and put as much damage and pressure and power on the person as I could. In this case, I don't want to do that. I'll catch myself, not with my hand, but maybe slightly with my elbow. So I'm going to wrap and fall here. All right, now those are the 4 techniques that everyone needs to work on this semester. We have 3 other techniques that the advanced players are going to need to work on. The first one for advanced players, this is brown belts and above, is you're going to be required to show that Okuriashi Harai not only in the sideways version, but when uke steps backwards, as I showed earlier. So just as a reminder of that, it can be the right foot sweeping here, or it could be the left foot and sweeping there. But it's when my opponent steps back. So it'll be Okuriashi Harai, the assisting foot sweep, when uke steps back. All right. Second technique for advanced players is going to be Hanigoshi, the springing hip throw. So with the springing hip throw, my setup can be a lot like Harai Goshi. The difference is my lifting leg is going to actually bend, and it's going to go to the inside of his leg. So with Harai Goshi, my leg was straight and I was outside his leg. With Hanigoshi, my leg's going to be bent. And I like to think about making this kind of like a platform. And I want that platform to be used to lift my partner up. You can think about letting your foot kind of touch his other leg or hook just in the space between the legs. It's going to be really important with this throw, like a lot of our throws, forward throws. I really need to lift and pull strongly forward. If he's flat-footed with his heels down, you have a lot harder time lifting him and throwing him forward. So I can step to the middle, Fencer step in close. Load him up by lifting him and then lifting and dropping him like that. So if you notice, my legs and arms work together. I've pulled him here, but I'm not strong enough just to pick him up completely. I can get him on the balls of his feet though, and then I can lean my hip out. So a fencer step sometimes works well. I might step, 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 lift, and pivot. We could also utilize that same swinging foot motion, where this foot comes here, this one hops, and now you see instead of straightening out the leg, I bent it here. So pivot, pivot, and lift for Hanagoshi. All right, last technique for advanced players, Uchimata, inner thigh reap. However, this time we're going to say we try to hit it, and we kind of get stuck. So instead of fighting back and forth, maybe getting countered, I'm going to tuck, grab one of his legs, and do a forward roll. And on your promotion form or paperwork, your study sheet, it's going to say roll to a pin or a leg lock. Remember, leg locks are never legal in judo, but we do want to learn them just for self-defense, and because there are other styles of grappling, sambo, jiu-jitsu, that do allow leg locks. In this case, it's going to be like a straight knee bar, an ashi jujigatami. Okay? So my opponent has that left foot forward, got my thumb in the rear collar. I'm going to enter for my Uchimata, but as I try to lift his leg, I should say, he's very well planted. I didn't create enough off balance, or maybe he's just strong and heavy. So I try to lift, and I can't get it. So I don't want to stay in here for too long. The longer I'm here, greater chance I'm going to get countered. So I'm going to let my right arm stay behind his neck. My left arm is going to release my grip, and I'm going to shoot it down. It's going to go between my leg and his left leg, and I'm going to grab the back of his leg. Once I have that grip, I'll tuck my head, and I'll basically roll over my left shoulder. And I'll use my leg, along with that falling body weight, to kick him on over. And I want to hold on to that grip if I can. And my cameraman, you may possibly have to move the camera a little bit as we complete this roll to be able to see the finish of it. We're going to take a little distance here, I'm sure. So again, we entered for the throw, couldn't complete it, so my left hand drops down, hook, and then I let my leg go through as I take a left-sided roll. Here, here. So I've got this grip. I'll use this foot to block his leg. Maybe I cross my ankles to block, or I just put one on the other. And then I'm going to pull this leg straight back to me here, execute my knee lock. Or I may finish in this position, let this leg kick across, and execute basically a hip switch. So I kick and hip switch into my pin. Okay. So that's our rolling Uchimata, or Uchimata to a roll with a pin or leg lock finish. Okay, those are our throwing techniques. Now, we do have a couple of things that fall into the counters and defenses and combination category. The first one is going to be a counter or defense, and it's when our opponent attacks us with Harai Goshi, and we just do what's called a hip twist block or a hip block. So it's important for this one, what I'm looking for is not you to block with the hand, but actually to use your hip and twist it strongly in and sort of hip out into him. So let's see if it's visible from this angle. If not, we'll change our angle. So my partner comes in for his Harai Goshi, and as he's entering here, before he gets the off balance and the lift, I'm going to use this hip, catch his hip as he comes in. So he's coming in, so I block him. He's coming in, so I block him, and remember, we probably won't stick around back here. We'll kind of block him and almost bounce off of him and move around the front. So he comes in, I block, and then I want to get out of there real quick. Remember, we never stay, as I like to say, in the hips. We never stay with our opponent blocking our hips in that position, because he may pull the throw off or be able to transition into a different throw. So we don't want to stay there. It's a very bad position for us, okay? For our advanced players, we have 3 more techniques for you guys. First one is going to be a combination Uchimata to O Uchigari. This is one of my favorite throws or combinations to use. So again, I'm a right-sided player. My right leg is forward. So my opponent, I want his left foot to be forward, or left leg to be forward. I'm going to go for Uchimata. So my right foot steps in the middle, left foot pivots beside him. I try to throw Uchimata, but I can feel he's very powerful and has a great balance, and he's pulling back. He does not want to fall forward. So I feel his force pulling in that direction. So I don't want to resist that. Instead, I want to go with that. So I'm pulling forward, but as he pulls back, I'm going to hook his leg. This is really important so I don't get a penalty here. I'm going to turn my shoulders. So I hop, hop, hop. Then I reap that leg out and execute O-Uchigari, the large inner reap. Let's see that maybe from this angle. So we go for Uchimata, he pulls back, hook, for O-Uchigari in the other direction. Next one is another Uchimata combination. It's going to be Uchimata, what we call a double stab. So I try to go for Uchimata, but my opponent is getting his leg lifted a little higher than I can finish. Maybe he's got longer legs, maybe he's taller, maybe I just was too slow or didn't get enough off balance. So basically, it's looking like he's going to be able to step his leg over and clear my Taitoshi. So I don't want that to happen. I'm going to use the position I've created. I've got him standing on one leg, at least for a second there. So I'm going to rechamber this leg. I'm going to snap it out into the Taitoshi position. That'll be toes down with a deep knee bend, and I want, again, my leg to be below his knee. So let's do a little bit of an angle here, sort of like this. So his left leg is forward. So I go for my Uchimata, and I do get his leg up here, but I can't finish it. I'm kind of struggling here. So I'll rechamber and snap this leg out really low. Boom, just like that. And then Taitoshi here. So not there, elbow in tight and forward for Taitoshi. All right, our last one, again, an Uchimata technique. This is an Uchimata heavy semester. Uchimata, very powerful throw, very successful tournament throw. When I was younger and competed a lot, this was one of my top 3 throws, used it quite a bit. A lot of players use Uchimata, so I wanted to cover a lot of Uchimata eventualities for you guys. So, Tsukashi means evasion. In this case, my opponent is attacking with Uchimata. I'm going to evade and then use some upper body wheeling motion with my hands. And basically, his leg traveling in the air creates the initial off balance, and then I just finish it, okay? Let's try it from here, I suspect. Actually, let's try it from here, okay? So my opponent is coming in. He wants to hit this Uchimata, okay? What I have to do is be just a split second ahead of him. I don't want him to get my leg lifted all the way up. I want to get out of the way. So as he comes through, I realize what he's doing, and I step my leg out. His leg continues to go up. I step forward, push with my left hand, pull with my right hand here to finish the throw. I've only seen this done in tournaments a couple of times. Sometimes it's done almost accidentally. The person doesn't realize what they're doing. But when the person hits it and the timing is just right, it really does look like uke throws themselves. Because if they come in really blasting hard, thinking they're going to meet resistance, and they lift that leg up hard and fast, they really almost throw themselves over. I've pulled this off once in a tournament, and it wasn't pretty, but it did score a palm. So Tsukashi, very cool technique. You just have to get ahead of your opponent. You have to be just a little ahead of them, okay? All right, so that's all the standing techniques for this semester. All right, guys, we're going to cover a lot of the groundwork here for semester 6 in our adult curriculum. So we're going to cover the pins, escapes, the chokes, the joint locks, and the miscellaneous mat work. So got a lot of good stuff coming your way. We have a couple of pinning techniques we're going to go over. First one's going to be Kuzure Keisagatami. So Kuzure simply means modified, or it's a variation. So I'll have Coach Matthew on his back. So for our regular Keisagatami, we put our arm behind your head. For Kuzure, our arm is simply going to go underneath the armpit, and we're going to cup the top of the shoulder or grab the back of his lapel. Now this is sort of the standard textbook Kuzure Keisagatami. There could be other things we could technically classify or call Kuzure Keisagatami if they're a modified version of the scarf hold, but this is what we're looking for testing purposes. So I scoop this arm under my armpit, sit in real tight and close, wide base with the legs, arm goes under the shoulder, and I can cup the top of his shoulder, or I might grab and pull down on the gi right here. So I've got this modified scarf hold. Your escapes are going to pretty much be the standard ones we normally employ for Keisakatami. He could do an uphill turn where he puts his hand on the back of my head and starts to push and rotate so he can pull his body free. Okay? Or he may do a bridge and roll, or he may also do a leg entanglement. Okay? So remember, let's actually go this way just a little bit. That bridge and roll, remember, you want to pull him close to your body with your arms and lift with your legs. Kind of get their weight up onto your body first. So I've got him here, so he grips me tight, pulls me close. He's going to lift my weight forward and then bridge over with the legs. It's really important using those leg muscles to do most of the work. Use the arms to help to pull him tight and hold him in place. Also remember, for judo purposes, if he can manage to turn onto his side and kind of scamper in close enough, if he can reach over with one of his legs and hook one of my legs and pull it and trap it in the half guard, that will stop the hold down clock. Doesn't mean that I have to let him go. I'll be given a few seconds to free that leg. If I don't free it in time, the referee would probably stop us, but this will stop the hold down clock. So if I've got him here, let's turn just a bit. If he can manage to turn to his side, getting close, reach over, but he has to get it inside both legs and have his ankles or his legs crossed. So this would stop the hold down. And I would have a limited amount of time to maybe reach back, get the leg out, then the hold down would start again. If I didn't get my leg out in time, the referee's going to call mate, going to stand us back up. All right, next one is Munegatami, excuse me, the chest hold. So with him on his back, I'm going to be right beside him, got my knees out wide, one in his shoulder, one in his armpit. I'm going to go across chest to chest, and I'm going to hug this shoulder, pull him in nice and tight. He always wants to frame up here to protect himself anytime the person gets in the side control position. So we'll have this forearm here under my shoulder and my neck. And if I have the forearm in the neck, as I try to push down and put pressure, I actually might start to choke myself. So that can sort of help discourage me from putting too much pressure. And then his other elbow is under my hip with his hand either on my hip or grabbing my belt or on my stomach, somewhere here under my midsection. So again, he's going to use his leg muscles to bridge upward. He's going to shrimp away and then get space to get that bottom knee in and to recover his guard. Okay, so it's going to be that bottom knee, we call the knee shield, trying to get that knee between my body and his. He can then use that to make even more space if he needs to. And again, there are other ways of escaping. That's kind of one of the standard ones that we're doing. Okay, choking techniques. First one is kata juji jime. Kata juji jime is one of our 3 cross chokes, and this is the half cross choke. I'll have Coach Matthew on his back with his head toward the camera. And just step up there, there we go. So I'll just kind of show the hand position for these. With our cross chokes, the nami juji jime would be my thumbs in on both sides. Kata, or half, is going to mean thumb in on one side, fingers in on the other. So I could go thumb in, knife edge of my hand into his neck, and then I could go fingers in over here. And I like to leave enough space in the lapel so that I can grip the lapel, and when I rotate my hand, it pulls tight so this knife edge is biting here. So we have this knife edge here, and we'll start here, but end up with this knife edge here. So thumb goes in. I could go under my arm if I can. That way I can use this to help lift his chin. If I go over, it's okay as well. I like to go under if possible, get some space. When I rotate, it's going to snap that into position, and then I simply straighten my wrists out. Okay? Our other choke here is the reverse cross choke, gyaku juji jime. So we said normal, his thumbs both in. We said kata, fingers on one hand, or thumb on the other, or thumb on one, fingers on the other. With reverse, it's going to be fingers on both hands in the lapel. So fingers go in on this side. Again, I'll leave enough slack so when I rotate, the knife edge can touch. I'll go under on this side. So with this one, I leave a good bit of slack the way that I do it. So when I rotate around, see now, I've got that position. So fingers in, rotate, and straighten the wrist. From here to here, and choke. Okay? So that's our 2 chokes for that group this semester. We had kata and gyaku juji jime. Now, our advanced players have an additional choke. This is going to be a variation of katate jime, which is kind of a one-arm choke. And this particular variation we refer to as the baseball bat or the gator roll. I've heard it called several different things. So it takes place when I'm on my back and my opponent is in my guard and they are passing my guard, coming to my right side. Could be that they passed my guard, I couldn't stop them, or it could be that I set them up. And I got the grip of my hands in position for this, allowed them to pass so I could execute this choke. So Coach Matthews here in my guard, I want to pretend or imagine that I'm gripping a baseball bat. So bottom of the bat and this hand right above as I'm swinging the bat. So I want my hands to be that same way on his collar. So this one I'll go thumb in, and with the other one I'll grab his other lapel with my fingers in, just like this. And so maybe I just use this grip and we're sort of guard fighting here, and I get him to pass my guards. Maybe he pushes the leg down, starts coming across. Now as he's coming across and before he can settle all of his weight, what I need to do is turn my body and start letting this arm go across his windpipe, just like that. So I'm going to turn my body here and then pull and push for the choke here. So you want to continue your turn in that direction. Sometimes you don't get the choke here, but you can actually roll them on over and finish on top of them. So I'm going to go a little loose with my choke here so I'm not killing my partner, and I'll just keep driving and rolling, turning all the way over, and maybe I finish that choke right here with me on top. Okay? So that's a variation of a patate jambe for us, one-arm choke, in this case a baseball bat or gator roll choke. Joint locks for this semester. We have a cool wrist locking technique. Now remember, with wrist locks, they're not legal in judo competition. We can use them in self-defense, and in certain jiu-jitsu divisions, they're also legal. This first one is called kodagaishi. That's a wrist reversal or a reverse wrist twist. So from a standing position, one way this might happen is if my opponent grabbed me here. I could let my thumb go here on the back of his palm, back of his hand, and I'm going to wrap my fingers around by his thumb. I could use the other hand underneath to help break that grip. And I like to get both thumbs here, right on the back of his knuckles. And this is wrapped around the meat of his thumb, this around the other side of his hand. Now I'm going to go real slow with this and let Coach Matthew just sort of walk down with it. So for this move, I would step, and I would start to step back in a circular motion. And I want to twist his wrist, and I like to think about putting the palm of their hand onto the mat. So I would start to push that palm toward the mat here to finish it. Now you'll see this done a lot of times in Aikido styles, and in some jiu-jitsu styles, the partner can take a large aerial roll. But when you're working with your partner in class, you want to go nice and slow and let them build up to that. Maybe they do it on a crash pad a few times first, or it's also okay to simply walk them down slowly. In most Japanese jiu-jitsu styles, you'll see less of a focus on the circular motion and the big fall, more focus on kind of the pain compliance. So with an Aikido version of the technique, I would step and throw it. It would take up a lot of room. A jiu-jitsu style, I may not step at all. I might simply go from here and then simply start pushing downward here and execute that block. Okay. So kodagaishi, the reverse wrist twist. Wakigatami is another arm lock for this semester. This is the armpit arm lock. From a standing position, if he gripped me here, I would grab, break his grip, and then I'm going to put his elbow into my armpit. So I step, rotate his arm, put his elbow into my armpit. Now I don't want to bend over. I want to keep my posture tall, bend my knees. And I'm going to pick up on the wrist end a little higher and push down on the elbow end. Like this. So let's see that from the other angle. So if he grips me here, I break the grip. I'm rotating his arm so his elbow faces up, step into position, clamp down on his elbow. I'm going to lift up on his wrist slightly more than I have the elbow. So I'll bend my knees, push down here, and keep this side a little higher. Now notice that I kept my posture mostly erect and tall, didn't bend over. I did not get super close to him. So one thing a lot of people do when they first learn this technique or first start learning it is they step in to here. And me into his hips, it'd be very easy for him to do Sekui Nage or Tani Otoshi, or in Aikido we call it Geida Nate. So I really want to make sure when I take that step that I'm keeping some distance here. And before I can finish this lock, if I feel him push toward me, I'll move away from him and I'll keep that distance until I execute the lock fully and can finish with a tap or by injuring his elbow if necessary. Okay. Advanced students this semester also need to demonstrate wakigatami with the opponent on their stomach initially. So I'll have Coach Matthew on his stomach, head right there toward you guys. So I'm going to get right here beside him, got my right knee by his hip. I'm going to take my right arm, grab the back of his collar, put my elbow and forearm down his spine so I'm kind of trapping him there. I can also feel it if he tried to make a sudden movement to turn or pivot or anything like that. My left hand is going to grab some slack by his elbow, as close to the elbow as I can get. And I want my hand to be popping his elbow out. At the same time, my back knee is going to slide up his rib cage, and I'm going to try to put it in that space between his elbow and his body. I want to use it like a wedge. So as my knee goes in, I want it to be pushing his elbow out just like that. Okay? So I've got him here and here, so I want my knee to make contact with that space between his elbow and his ribs at the same time I pull out with my left hand. So here. So I basically kind of kick it through. And I let my right leg go through into the sitting position. Now this right arm can stay pressure and just slide forward and grab his wrist. The left hand grabs his wrist, and then I put his elbow into my armpit, lift up on the wrist end, and push downward on the elbow end. Okay? All right, so that's going to be our wakigatami versus an opponent who is on his stomach. Miscellaneous mat work for this semester. We have the ude-garami arm trap versus the half guard. So this is a little bit of a confusing name in some cases. It was the best name I could come up with years ago when we added it to the curriculum as an actual technique. So I'm going to have him on his back, head toward you guys, and I'm going to have my right leg here. Let's go back a little bit this way, in his half guard. So I'm not actually going to execute ude-garami. I'm going to trap his arm in the upper ude-garami position. So I'll get my left leg out wide, I get chest to chest for some pressure, and I'll put this arm behind his head. And I just want to push this hand here, and I'm going to let my four fingers clamp across the top. And I'm just going to trap it there. So I'm not actually getting the full ude-garami locking position to execute a joint lock. I'm just trapping it. It's an ude-garami position arm trap. Okay? Once I have this arm trapped, then I'll let my left leg go out, execute a hip switch to the rear, and then I can work on freeing my legs. I might be able just to push off. I might have to pull while I kick and then drag. But I've now tied up this arm and shoulder, making it harder for him to fight me, and making this arm free I can use to help free my trapped leg. Now I won't let that go. I may go into a nice monegatami position, and then perhaps I'll finish the arm bar, or I may just use this part of my pin and work for something else. Okay? So we refer to that as an ude-garami arm trap, and we're just using it to help us, in this case, pass half guard. Another very similar technique is the katate jime guard pass, also versus half guard. So we talked about katate jime a little bit earlier when I have that thumb in and I start bringing the forearm right across his neck. So again, Coach Matthews on his back and I am in the half guard. So in this case, what I'm going to do is let my thumb of my left hand go high and in his collar. And I'm going to use my forearm across his neck. And then I would execute left leg out and hip switch. So in this case, I'm using this arm to keep him trapped. I'm probably not going to tap him with this, but if I can put him in a stressful situation so that he has to start focusing on stopping this choke from really getting him and putting him unconscious, then he's not focusing on his leg. So he's not focusing on keeping that half guard. I'm going to go real shallow here and put my arm across Coach Matthews' upper chest so I can do the full hip switch without putting all that pressure on his neck unnecessarily. When we're doing it for real, we would go super deep and we'd bring that forearm right across his windpipe. Okay, he should really not be comfortable. So I'd be here, I'd put this pressure down, leg out, switch, and now again use that to help me free my trapped leg. Now it's possible once I'm here, maybe I would sneak this up, grab the other gi, and finish with a kind of an okiri jame type choke, or I maybe just use that katate jame position to help enhance my pin. Last technique is the one for the advanced players. It's going to be the waiter sweep. Excuse me, I'm mistaken. We actually have this technique plus one more. So we have the waiter sweep for our advanced players. In this case, it's going to be using what we call a high open guard. So I would be on my back, and I have my opponent here. So maybe he threw me and he's trying to pass my guard. Maybe he started in my guard and stood up at a level change. And so I might have double lapels or sleeve and lapel or misery guard type grip, any grip you want. But with this technique, what I'm going to do is let my right hand reach over and do what we call a cross grip. So my right hand grabs his right sleeve and I pull it just slightly across. My right foot comes off of his hip and hooks right behind his knee on the same side. And now the reason we call it a waiter sweep, I'm going to dive this arm down. So I have to really pivot my body and get kind of sideways to him almost, making like an L. So my head goes from here all the way to here. Then I can shoot this arm under and I can hook and push. And I really want to be sure I'm doing something to finish, like coming up and finishing a guard pass. I don't want to go into his guard if I can help it. So we call it a waiter sweep. We want this elbow to get behind his ankle, his heel, and we curl it up. So it kind of has the position of a waiter maybe carrying a full tray of food. It's important to remember this right foot, it has to get behind that right leg. If not, it's a lot easier for him to take a step back and possibly beat the sweep. Not absolutely impossible to finish without that, but it's going to be much harder. So when this dives down and I hook, I have to keep that leg trapped. If that foot isn't there, he can take his left leg and start to step back, and it gets a lot harder for me to sweep him. Whereas if I have that, now my left foot just gives a gentle push right here. It doesn't have to be hard, and he'll fall right over. I would use this like a rope to help pull myself up. All right, now the last technique. I got a little ahead of myself earlier. So, last technique, also for our advanced players, is what we call the skirt choke versus half guard, or it could be a skirt choke versus the mount. You can actually also do this from on your back with your opponent in your guard. There's a lot of different ways that you can utilize it. In this case, I'm going to show it just from the mount position. So I'll have my opponent on his back. I will be here in his guard. I'll be here in full mount, not in his guard. And what I want to do is pull this gi out, and I'm going to take the bottom here, what we refer to as the skirt, and I'm going to drive it under his armpit. And I want to take it all the way to the other side and grab it with this hand. So look, this hand comes here, trades it, pulls it as far over as I can. So now I've got the skirt from this side, under his arm, behind his neck, coming out over here. Once it's there, I'll change hands. So this hand can grab it. Now this hand comes over, and I can just grab this big wrinkle right here, or I could get my thumb in if there's room. I like to just grab that wrinkle and then execute a cross choke here. When we do that, sometimes the opponent will start to tuck their jaw and their chin to the side. So we could take our forearm here and we could use it to drag across their jaw to help turn their head. So if I were here, I could take this and use it to drag and turn and expose the other side of the neck. In this case, I'm basically executing Nami Judo Semester, palms down, thumbs in. I could grab palm up here and then palm down, in which case I would be doing Kata Judo Semester, which was one of our chokes we showed earlier in this particular video for this semester. All right, guys, that's a lot of ground techniques. That gives you everything you need for semester 6.